Amazon finally updated the entry-level Kindle in 2022 with the new 11th generation Kindle and now offers an affordable e-reader with updated state-of-the-art specs again. In this review, we will check out the software features, the build quality, contrast levels, lighting quality, and answer the question if this new Kindle is a worthy addition to the Kindle lineup. Skip to the parts you're most interested in using the video chapters if you don't want to watch the full review. It would be great if you take a second to like and subscribe to help the channel and to not miss future tips and tricks, reviews and comparisons. So let's start. The new Kindle is available in the colors blue and black. The black version is made of 75% recycled plastic, the blue version of only 35%. The feel of the matte plastic is a bit different than on the previous model, where the front of the device felt a little smoother. The new Kindle has a more textured plastic, which is very subtle, but still noticeable when touching it. And to be honest, I have to say it makes the Kindle feel not bad, but a bit cheap in my opinion. When coming from the Paperwhite or Oasis, you can clearly feel that the other two devices are the more expensive options. Fortunately, this doesn't show in the build quality, which is excellent. In combination with the hard plastic frame, this makes the new Kindle feel very robust. Besides that, I also like that the frame isn't a fingerprint magnet. Touching the bezel will only leave a subtle smudge, which is barely visible, so you won't be wiping the fingerprints off the frame all the time. One thing missing from the Kindle is waterproofing, which the Paperwhite and the Oasis have. It's not a big deal in my opinion, but would have been nice to have the feature nonetheless. In the press release, Amazon stated that with a weight of 158 grams, this is the lightest Kindle yet. Which is not entirely true if you factor in the very first Kindle Oasis, which only had 131 grams. But putting that aside, the new Kindle is very lightweight and the lightest in the current lineup. And that's especially great for reading longer periods of time, because holding the Kindle never becomes inconvenient. The e-reader is also the most compact Kindle you can get. It still relies on the 6-inch form factor many other models have been using in the past for many years. The display is slightly recessed into the body and not flush with the front, as it's the case with the other Kindle models. This makes the new Kindle not looking as modern as the current Paperwhite, for example, but the display is less likely to get scratched this way. Overall, this makes the design somewhat similar to the old Kindle Paperwhite 3, although the new Kindle's narrower bezels make for a more modern look, also when compared to the slightly larger previous model. And not to forget, the new Kindle also has USB-C now. Even with the same 6-inch form factor, the biggest upgrade of the new Kindle is its display. It uses an ink cutter screen, now with a much higher resolution of 300 ppi. The old model only had 167 ppi, so in other words, sharpness of the text is now much better than on the previous Kindle. You might have heard the term Retina display, which Apple coined with their iPhone a couple of years ago. That means that you can't see individual pixels when viewing the display at the normal reading distance, because pixels are so small. That's now also true for the Kindle. With that, Amazon closes the gap in its lineup so that now every Kindle without exception features a high-resolution display. The upgrade in resolution is not just a marketing gimmick, but is really noticeable in everyday use. I wasn't the biggest fan of the old Kindle because the low resolution on the small 6-inch display just didn't offer a particularly good reading experience for me personally. That's no longer the case with the new Kindle. Reading is much more comfortable now. But let's also take a closer look under the microscope. Here you can clearly see the difference in resolution. The old Kindle looks pixelated, while the text on the new one looks much smoother. Contrast levels are pretty much the same as on the old model, which was very good to begin with, so text is readable easily. Since it's e-ink technology, you can use the Kindle in direct sunlight and it's still perfectly readable. That's actually the best condition you can use the device. But of course you can also use the e-reader in the dark because it has an inbuilt front light. The screen is lit using 4 LEDs, which are positioned out of sight in the frame at the bottom of the display, and the light is distributed using a special carrier film which sits on top of the display. The illumination is much better than on the older model. It's not perfect, but clearly more uniform than before. There's still a subtle brightness gradient visible, which is most obvious at the very bottom of the screen where the LEDs are located. Overall, the quality is fine, and light distribution helps when reading, and doesn't distract from it. Regarding the display, the reading experience very much mirrors the Kindle Paperwhite in terms of readability and comfort. The biggest difference is obviously the size and the missing color temperature adjustment of the inbuilt light. I would have loved to being able to adjust color temperature on the entry-level Kindle as well, but then again it would have been more expensive and would have also moved it closer to the Paperwhite, which wouldn't have made much sense for Amazon's portfolio strategy. Instead, Amazon is putting more focus on the Darkmode, which is also available for other Kindles. Can be activated in the top settings area and invert screen colors, so background gets black and text and icons white. That's usually something you see on smartphones and tablets to reduce eye strain. That option also works well for the Kindle and helps compensating for the missing color temperature adjustment. But it also makes the ghosting effect a little more noticeable, which isn't an issue with having black text on white background. The dark mode implementation is still incredibly well done because the unavoidable full screen refresh, which happens from time to time to remove text ghosting, also means that the background gets white for a split second. So to not get blinded when that happens, the Frontlight turns off in that same moment and back on when the refresh is done. It's small details like this that helped Amazon cement its position as a market leader in the e-reading space. Let's have a look at the software. The new Kindle uses the same user interface as the other current models. This is the UI, which was introduced in the first half of 2022. The home screen is divided into two parts, with the recently read, purchased or downloaded books at the top and shop recommendations below. Responsiveness of the user interface is on par with other Kindles and noticeably faster than on the previous model. The ad-supported model has the usual ad on the standby screen and also an ad on the home screen in between the shop recommendations. On the old user interface, the home screen ad was positioned at the bottom and was always visible and more intrusive as a result. That placement has changed because of the new tab layout with the navigation at the bottom of the screen where you can switch between home and the library. Which brings us to the book-related functions. The library has a couple of different filtering and sorting options and uses collections to organize your books. Audiobooks are also included in the library. In a book, you can create notes by highlighting a word or selection of the text and then typing it out with the virtual QWERTY keyboard. The dictionary function is among the best in the e-reading space, with over 40 explanatory and translation dictionaries available. They usually find what I'm looking for, but the scope of a dictionary depends on the language, so experience may vary here. Installing dictionaries is a bit unintuitive in my opinion, because it's done through downloading the dictionaries in the library, which isn't the first place you're looking for them. The text styling options allow for changes in font weight, text size, font family, and also margins and line height. If you like to change things up from book to book, you can also save your settings in your own theme to quickly switch between different stylings. You can also install your own fonts by copying them into a dedicated directory on the device. But that's not all. The Kindle software also offers a couple of other features which many competitors don't have and aren't as noticeable at first. There's the Kids mode, which allows you to lock the Kindle user interface to selected functions. So for example, the shop and browser can't be used. You can also track reading progress in that mode. Amazon also offers a dedicated version of the Kindle for Kids, which comes with a 2 years warranty, Kids Plus subscription and a case. I will do a dedicated review on the Kids edition in a follow-up video, so make sure to subscribe to not miss it. With X-Ray, you can get additional information inside an ebook. Information on characters, places or terms. That can be useful if you read more complex, character-heavy titles like Song of Ice and Fire, for example. And with the vocabulary builder, you can test if you remember the words you have looked up, while WordWise helps you in understanding difficult words directly on the page without actually needing to open the dictionary. Reading PDF files is a rather basic experience because A, the 6-inch screen is pretty small, and B, the software doesn't offer many options for navigating a page. You can use pinch to zoom on a page and use contrast enhancement to improve readability when anti-aliasing is smoothing the text too much. And that's basically it. Although it works well for what it is, Amazon is obviously not focusing on PDF functionality. Zooming and moving the viewport around works well enough, even with more complex PDF files, but I still wouldn't recommend in getting a Kindle for mainly reading PDFs. The previous Kindle also had Audible integration, but with only 4 gigs of internal non-expandable memory at launch, which later was upgraded to 8 gigs, You didn't have as much room for your downloaded audiobooks as with the new model, and 16 gigs, of which around 13 gigs are usable. You can listen to the audiobooks via Bluetooth and compatible speakers or headphones. The player itself is pretty simple but does its job. Unfortunately, you can't sideload music or audiobooks, so you're dependent on Audible for that functionality. One great feature, which isn't mentioned too often, but always blows my mind when I'm using it, is Whispersync for voice. If you bought an ebook and the corresponding audiobook, you can switch between the ebook and the audiobook on the fly and continue at the position you ended in either one. But it only works for compatible titles and not for every ebook or audiobook. And although an audiobook is usually discounted when you already own the ebook, it's still an additional cost. So while it's a super useful feature, it can get expensive if you use it often. Amazon set up the Matchmaker tool to check your Kindle library for Whispersync for voice titles. See the link in the description below if you want to try it. The built-in store lets you directly buy ebooks and audiobooks with your Amazon account. Setting it up is super easy because if you ordered the Kindle from the Amazon website and chose to link it to your account, you don't need to enter any payment details. Just connect to your Wi-Fi and your account is already linked. The shop itself is divided into Kindle ebooks and Audible audiobooks. The recommendation system works well with your previous purchases. The entry-level Kindle was in need for an upgrade for some time now, because the low-resolution screen just wasn't up to date anymore. With this new Kindle, Amazon finally listened and pumped up the specs of the entry-level e-reader. The high-resolution display makes reading so much better. It's especially obvious when using smaller text sizes and in the user interface in general. But it's not just the screen. The new Kindle also got double the internal storage, which makes handling audiobooks easier because you don't have to constantly remove old ones to make room for the new downloads. And the better responsiveness of the new Kindle makes handling the e-reader also more convenient in general. Overall, the Kindle very much presents itself as a Kindle Paperwhite Lite. Some things are obviously not as good as on the more expensive models, but the reading experience is better than on all other entry-level Kindles Amazon has released in the past. Having said that, I personally would still recommend the Kindle Paperwhite if you aren't looking for the cheapest or smallest e-reader. So subscribe to the channel to not miss the comparison to that and also to the Kobo Clara 2e. In the end, the Kindle is a good choice as a compact entry-level e-reader, and I predict it will age much more gracefully than the previous model. Thanks for your time and see you in the next one.